Masculinity, when approached as a journey of self-awareness and growth, transforms a man's life into a path where strength is measured by the depth of understanding and the courage to be truly authentic. My name's Jasper Brown, and welcome to the Conscious Masculine. This is the first episode of a show, a channel, a podcast of mine, which I've been planning for quite some time and looking forward to starting. So here we are now, finally at the beginning. If you've been following my work online for some years, I've been immersed in men's work, relationship coaching, personal growth and development, and sharing my journey, my path, my relationship, and the insights that I've gathered along the way so far. In this first episode, I've been hoping to basically flesh out some of the ideas and concepts that I'll be talking about moving forward and that I have planned for the scope of this podcast, as well as just a general definition and understanding of conscious masculinity as I see it. And through this work that I've been doing, I've really somehow tapped into and got in touch with a deep necessity in men. My calling has been from the beginning of my personal growth and development journey to really quest and discover for myself, first and foremost, what it means to be a man in the world. And I think we live in quite a difficult, challenging, confusing time for a lot of men. And I've seen this played out in many different ways, expressed from many different voices through the hundreds of men that I've now worked with around these topics, and I've been in a privileged position to observe and hear the insights and feedback from so many men, sharing their stories, their struggles, their failures in relationships, their angst and confusion around how to show up, how to be authentic, how to be real, and how to create the kind of relationships and the kind of life that I think we're all somehow looking for, searching for, and questing for. My own journey on this path has been full of mistakes, full of hard lessons learned through the fire of combat and relationship fracture, and really struggling to find and create the kind of healthy, healing, vibrant, intimate partnership that I'd been longing for quite some time, having grown up and really never received any kind of education on this topic. I think our school system, our family systems from an early age, and the school systems following that leave a lot to be desired for men. We hear so much these days about women's rights, the movement of feminism, women stepping in and reclaiming their power and sovereignty. And it seems as if men and men's issues gets pushed way down the list. And we see in the resurgence, or this somehow revival of men's issues in the red pill community, where men are basically up in arms and roaring in defiance and saying, what about me? What about us? We're also suffering. We also have it hard. And it's kind of become unfashionable, uncool, unpopular, underfinanced to support men's issues. And yet, isn't men's issues inextricably linked with women's issues? Don't we live in a society that is pretty much 50-50 masculine, feminine? Or men, male, female, let's put it that way. How can we resolve the issues for women by ignoring the source of so many of women's complaints, i.e. toxic men? Are we not in an age where we need to redefine traditional gender norms and values associated with being men and women? It seems in this modern age that we're moving into a time where all of this is up for review. the whole trans issue and the dissolution of traditional gender norms seems to be alluding to that, no? It seems to be sending us in this direction where we're starting to question, what does it even mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a woman? What does it mean to have gender at all? And so I think there is this deep necessity here for, and not just a necessity, but also an incredible opportunity for men to start really engaging with this as a path of self-discovery, as a path of personal growth and development, to examine this part of themselves, not just taking it for granted, not just listening to our forebearers, our fathers, the older men in our generation, and somehow riding this wave of change, seeing that the past is no longer somehow serving us in the same way, or there's not so much substance there to rely on. Of course, there are things of value that we need to extract, timeless wisdom, timeless principles that we can bring forward into the present in order to create the good life, in order to be grounded and balanced, stable and mature. But there are also things we need to do away with. There are traits and characteristics and habits and societal kind of programmings and conditionings that we can do away with that perhaps no longer serve us. So we enter an age when we're really starting to redefine what it means to be a man. We're re-examining this. The kind of way that I've been thinking about this issue and expressing it to the men that I'm working with, expressing it in my content online, is really seeing that there is this massive shift underway, this almost a reversal of polarity. Polarity being this dynamic between two sides, the masculine and the feminine. Women have come all the way over from the traditional gender roles of the woman stays at home and raises the kids and cooks the meals, to suddenly being liberated from that and free to explore a career of her own, to earn her own money, to choose to raise her own children if she so wishes. This tremendous freedom of somehow reclaiming their power, which has been very, very, very necessary for women to integrate the masculine side of themselves energetically. Because the masculine is typically associated with action, structure, direction, achievement. Whereas the feminine side, much more nurturing by nature, much more feeling based, heart-centered, softer, more sensitive. Women have said, let's do away with that. That it's actually a burden. It's a prison we've been kept in by men who want to have all of the freedom and to also come home to a nicely cooked meal and not have to worry about raising the kids, apart from once they get home from work and perhaps on the weekend. Women have said, hey, fuck no, we don't want this anymore. We want choice. We want the freedom to choose. We still want to be mothers, but not as an obligation, as a free will. A conscious decision to choose that life. We as men find ourselves now in an interesting position because the women are busy integrating their masculine side, and we've lost that role somehow. We don't necessarily need to be providers like we used to, although I'm sure many women still appreciate that. But it's no longer the expectation. And in this shift, we can also see men moving in the opposite direction, starting to get in touch with what they feel, starting to be much more aware of their emotions, their trauma, their desire, their pleasure, their willingness and need for play and spontaneity and flow, and a gradual integration of the feminine side. And within that is a profound necessity a very profound necessity for us to be becoming the kind of men that can actually create deep safety, profound intimacy, a much more intuitive and emotional connection to the woman in our lives. I've noticed in my own life, especially, this transition and how it has transformed my ability to show up in my relationship, for example. When my emotional side was unintegrated, underdeveloped, suppressed out of me, as society tends to do, because boys are grown up with this impression that boys don't cry, feelings are feminine, don't be a pussy, man up. So I found myself in my earlier relationships, my first relationships, really struggling with this side of myself, grappling with this desire to be strong and be seen as the man, but also feeling this inner angst, this turmoil, this emotional storm inside of me that was somehow wanting to be expressed, but I didn't know how, didn't think I could. And I can say honestly that that did ruin a number of my relationships, because I was out of touch with myself, unable to create the kind of intimacy, the kind of communication that was necessary to work through all of this stuff and become much more aware of the subtleties and nuances between me and my partners. Of course, I got to a later stage and found out that through my hard sort of mistakes that this doesn't really work. Okay, it can function to a certain degree. We can bumble our way through relationships. We can have relationships at a certain level. But there is deeper levels that need to be accessed, especially if you're with a woman or with a person in your life who is on the path of personal growth and development. We hear, in fact, a clamour from women worldwide calling for men who are more in touch with themselves, more conscious. And yet, what does that mean? We hear a lot these days about men doing the work, whatever that is. And that work, at least for me, and through many of the men that I've worked with and guided through this process, is the work of integration of not just the masculine side, but also the feminine side. We need both. And it's in fact through the feminine side that we actually get a deeper understanding of our masculinity. It's through the feminine side and the integration of our sensitivity, our emotion, our sensation, that we start to inform the part of us that wants to be masculine, the part of us that wants to show up with strength and connected to our hearts. And this for me has been a gateway into a far healthier, far more nourishing and fulfilling form of relating. I love to use myself as an example in this situation, because when I first met my partner, Natalie, we were extremely disharmonious. We fought all the time. We broke up multiple times. We really struggled, and we had this very toxic, we could say, dynamic in our relationship that was very passionate, very fiery, very exciting, and also fucking exhausting, terribly exhausting, because it was never peace. It was always fireworks, and we were kind of going on this model that we get shown in all the movies. Romeo, Juliet, I love him, but I can't have him. I want her, but it's forbidden. We're together, oh my God, it's so good. And then we're ripped apart, and oh my God, the tragedy. And that's just how relationships are, right? Well, at a certain level, yes. This is what I would describe as a wounded polarity. Undeveloped. At a certain stage of development, this is how we relate. But it doesn't have to be that way. At a certain stage, you become tired of this toxic dance between the wounded masculine and the wounded feminine. At a certain stage, you desire to focus your energies on more than just fixing the fires and putting them out and rebuilding what was broken time and time again, week in and week out. You desire to create a deeper life and focus your energies into creativity, into giving back to the world, into building something of value, of meaning, which is virtually impossible when you're spending all of your time fighting with the person that you're trying to love. And this became evident to Natalie and I at a certain stage, and we realized that, hey, this is we either need to fix this or we're going to end it. Because clearly this is not working how it should. We're both completely overwhelmed and burnt out and fed up with this toxic arrangement that we're in. And eventually we got to a stage where we decided, okay, we really need to work on this. We really need to figure out what is missing between us. And the bridgehead for us was communication. Really, really learning to communicate in a much deeper way, communicate authentically, truly, deeply, intimately. And within that direction, moving towards that, I found myself at a major loss. A loss for words, a loss for my ability to articulate myself, a loss to feel comfortable within myself, expressing these things. It was all new territory. Thankfully, I had a very beautiful and supportive partner who was curious, who wanted to see that side of me, and who in fact pulled it out of me. She had been banging on for years about wanting to see my softer side, wanting to know what I felt. And I had reluctantly palmed it off and deflected it for far too long, as my parents had taught me to do. We don't talk about what we feel in my family. We don't open up and be vulnerable unless it's in the most extreme of circumstances. That's just stuff we don't really talk about. We're busy getting shit done. And yet underneath that was decades of unfelt, unmet, unprocessed emotion. Yearning to be expressed, but afraid to be revealed. And gradually this got pulled out of me by her loving curiosity. Which initially was met with a lot of skepticism. Do you really want to know that? I'm worried you're not going to be attracted to me anymore. I'm worried that you'll use this against me, as women in the past had done so. There was a deep distrust, skepticism towards this new way of relating, new vulnerable expression coming from me. And yet on the other side of it, I found quite the opposite. This huge release, this huge surrender and relaxation, like the walls that I'd been holding up so firmly, these shields eventually started to fall away. And from that was a profound need that started to get nourished and met. This desire to be authentic. This desire to reveal the truth of what was inside me. I'm very grateful as well that I had a partner who was able to create space for that, who encouraged that. It was very healing for me to finally feel that someone loved me enough that they wanted to see not just these strong, confident sides of myself, the parts that were shiny, but also the ugly truths, the shadows hidden, the shameful parts of myself that I'd buried deep. Slowly I started to reveal that stuff, and through that process started to feel all this weight lifting gradually, piece by piece. And on top of that cathartic experience of revealing this tightly bundled mass of emotions and feelings and all of the stuff that I was too afraid to express, my relationship started to deepen. The intimacy that we were sharing started to become much deeper and much more profound. The safety and trust in our relationship transformed. She started to look at me differently, to respond to me differently, to go out of her way to meet me in certain ways that were new. And she also started to let her guards down too. Started to reveal her tender side, her fears, her deepest desires, her fantasies. And through this process, we both started to feel like we could truly be ourselves in the presence of one another. What a gift. What a very special gift. And through this process, I realized the deep necessity in this work. Because at the heart of it, this is what it means to become more conscious, right? And this is where a relationship becomes this incredible opportunity to heal, transform, and awaken ourselves. Through my own lessons and through this experience of relationship in this way, I started to understand what it means to be a man, who I was as a person, how I wanted to show up in my relationship, the kind of relationship that I wanted to create, what it really means to be healthy, to have a healthy way of communicating and talking about our deepest stuff. And I realized that this integration of my feminine side actually allowed me to show up with much more strength. I developed the capacity to sit with and validate the depth of my feeling. And that enabled me to then hold space and validate and show up for the depth of her feelings. And slowly through this process, I developed more capacity, much more depth to my character, which was in turn reciprocated by this beautiful feminine counterpart sitting across from me and sharing her life with me. She has worked to integrate her masculine side and is fiercely independent, capable of taking care of herself, of winning at life, and she doesn't need me. But she's choosing. She wants me. And I have the same. This capacity to exist by myself, to achieve, to get shit done, to have structure and direction with my life. And I've integrated my feminine side, which allows us to relate in a very deep and intimate way. And this is where I see so many men getting stuck. We have a tremendous influence from masculinity mentors around the world, the rise of people like Andrew Tate, and many other men in this kind of macho, stoic, masculine kind of perspective on reality, as somehow clinging to traditional gender norms dressed up in modern lingo. And I went down that path. It was my wounds and my frustrations and my anger at women for treating me the way that they did, which led me into the arms of the red pill perspective towards masculinity. And I found through that was like validation of my pain. Yes, women are treacherous. Women will take advantage of you. Women will cut you away when they find a better man, and they'll ditch you, or they'll try to rinse you of all your money at the first opportunity. Those thoughts found hooks in me because I was wounded, because I had been in pain, because I had experiences which really marked me. And it was my frustration, my unprocessed emotion, my inability to sit with the discomfort and admit the harsh truths about those relationships and about those women and about my own choices and the way that I acted, which enabled the red pill to find purchase in my being. Because it was speaking to my wounds. And when I started to become more conscious of my feelings, I realized that actually it's not a very conscious approach. Because it inherently takes more consciousness to do the dirty work, do the emotional labor of putting yourself in someone else's shoes and thinking not just about me, but about them. It requires more consciousness to truly validate the depth of your feeling and not just project it outwards. To sit in pain and shame and anger and resentment and the guilt and the frustration of fucking things up. And validating the shit out of that and taking responsibility for that. A conscious man is a man who is able to take responsibility for his stuff. Who's able to empathize and understand and put himself in the shoes of others. It's difficult to do that. It's taxing to do that. But that's what leads us into a much deeper and more nuanced experience of relationships. Because we don't just selfishly fight for our needs to get met, but we become deeply invested in meeting other people's needs and validating their feelings and honoring their good intentions. So this work, it really transformed my life, it really transformed my relationship, and it really helped me to see the necessity for a new approach towards masculinity. I believe there is a very big shift underway in our age. We have this reversal and flipping of the polarity in the world somehow, with women reclaiming their masculine, energetic nature. Men are forced to be in touch with what they feel. Women go too far in that direction. They become hyper-independent, the boss babe archetype. Men go too far in the opposite direction. We're collapsing into neediness, nice guy syndrome, or becoming incels, or losing ourselves in this victim mentality. And what we want is to come back to the place in the middle, into a place of balance. Because now more than ever, the women of the world are calling for men who are integrated, aware of themselves, doing the work, conscious. Masculinity has been the cause of enormous suffering. Toxic masculinity in its essence is selfishness and a lack of empathy, a lack of understanding. It's just selfishly, feverishly hungering for its own needs to get met, and fuck the consequences. Doesn't matter if someone else gets hurt. Collateral damage, it's irrelevant. We need to be better than that. Now there is an invitation to be better than that. The world needs good, strong, conscious, masculine men who are ready to lead the way, to integrate the lessons of the past, to listen to the voices of women calling for men who are better. And I believe the men who are inspired to do this work and who valiantly take up that responsibility and do this deep process of inner alchemization and integration of both sides of us, who pursue personal growth and development, transformation and awakening relentlessly throughout their lives, and revere the feminine, honor the feminine, and fight against unconsciousness, selfishness and greed in the world. I believe these men prime themselves and set themselves up to have a truly remarkable life, where we get everything that we could ever want, we live life on our terms instead of anyone else's, and we build the kind of healthy, vibrant relationships that so many of us long for but don't know how to reach. And in such a way, we actually create the environment for healing of the transgenerational trauma that is getting dragged down from one generation to the next, and our well-intentioned but unconscious parents passed on to us. We can create the kind of family systems and the kind of structure and relationships that actually raise children with a deep understanding of their emotional side, their physical side, their health, what it means to have a healthy relationship, what it means to communicate in an empathic way, what it means to live a truly remarkable and distinguished life. And I've seen it. I've seen it in my friends who are committed to this work, and they have children. They're raising those children in a way which, God, I wish my parents raised me. We're in a position where we get to create that. We get to create resources and the kind of containers and conversations that allow for such healing to unfold. And what a beautiful, beautiful thing that is. So I hope you will join me for this journey. I hope you feel inspired and connected to this work that I'm doing. I will be releasing many, many more episodes throughout this year and the many years to come. This is a long-term pursuit for me, a long-term labor of love and an expression of my truth, the truths that I've found, the insights that I've discovered, the things that have worked for me and that I see working for other men. I want to transmit that in a way as a catalogue for humanity of some sort. And I hope that it will be of service and be of use and connect the dots and open doors and create the healing that I know this work can and has done for me and has done for so many others that I've seen. And this channel is dedicated to this. It's an expression of my love for myself, my love for humanity, my love for other people, and I want to document as well my journey and see the progression and continue to offer this as a resource. Some of the most profound teachings and learnings that I've received have been a labor of someone else's love and has changed my life in tremendous ways. And if I can create something of a similar value to other people, this is the best use of my time. So with that said, we'll be covering a lot of topics moving forward. The intentions of this podcast is to cover personal growth and development in general, to really focus on helping people to establish the foundations of a healthy relationship in their life, because that has been a tremendous part of my own journey. We'll go into conscious communication, boundaries, understanding needs, desires, standards, intimacy, sexual energy mastery, conscious communication, all of these various ingredients that I found particularly useful and insightful in my own journey, my own relationship, and through thousands of hours in coaching. I'll be sharing all of those insights. I also want to focus heavily on the pursuit of finding life meaning and deeper purpose in life, to create the good life. What does that involve? How do we do that? Why? How? To really help people get themselves set up so we have a healthy relationship, we have a deep meaning and purpose and direction with our life, and that primes us to do the deepest work possible, starting to work towards awakening and spiritual understanding and metaphysics and epistemology. So this is the first episode of many, many to come. This will be an ongoing journey that I hope you will join me on. If you've made it this far in the episode, thank you for listening. I'm really excited to continue to create and bring you guys into my world and into my mind and share myself with you. And I look forward to your feedback. I'll have another episode uploaded soon. Stay tuned for this. My channel is going to be growing and exploding hopefully this year. Things will really start to shift in this direction. I hope you enjoy the long form content. I've been wanting to do this for quite some time. And yeah, I'm just really excited to share all of this and to have this avenue of expression. It feels really healthy for me, very exciting, and a new edge. As much as I can, I like to imbue everything that I do with love. In pursuit of understanding, love is my top value in life, followed by understanding in close second. I love to understand. I love to connect the dots. I love to make sense of things. I like to get to deeper meaning. And that leads us towards love, because the entirety of reality starts to make sense, start to connect, starts to align. And when everything starts to align, we see the deeper meaning underneath it all. And I've touched this many times, and it's completely changed my life in ways I can't even begin to describe, but I will try to do so for you guys. So I hope you feel inspired and ignited by this. I certainly do. I'm sure you can feel that. And yeah, I can't wait to share everything I know and more with you. So stay tuned, and I will see you in the next episode.